For the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, it has been an intense showdown with frequent interruptions from protesters, and that's all before we've even heard from Mr. Kavanaugh himself. That will happen in just a few minutes, and we will bring that to you live. But first, we're going to begin with an absolutely devastating peek behind the curtains of the West Wing and into the presidency of Donald Trump from one of the nation's most legendary journalists. Top officials in the Trump White House describing an alarming situation, detailing a president not up to the job intellectually or temperamentally, an administration even more dysfunctional than previously depicted and believed. It's all laid bare in Bob Woodward's new book, Fear: Trump in the White House, which will be out 1 week from CNN has obtained a copy of the book based on hundreds of hours of taped interviews and dozens of sources from President Trump's inner circle, sources who describe impulsive actions from President Trump on everything from discussing assassinations to his response to the Russia probe, President Trump's closest aides sometimes flat out ignoring his orders so as not to damage national security, some even going so far as to steal documents from the president's desk in the Oval Office so he can't see them or sign them, all done to, quote, protect the country. CNN's Jeff Zelany's at the White House, and he has much more. Jeff, CNN's learning that President Trump was exasperated that he was not interviewed for the book, though Bob Woodward sought many times to speak with them.
He did indeed, Jake, and in fact 6 times. Bob Woodward told the president in a phone call just last month that he tried through 6 top officials here to speak to the president. He also tried relaying a message through Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who apparently told the president that Woodward was working on this book. Jake, this book paints a portrait of paranoia and anger.
President Trump has been stewing inside the White House, and today we learned why. Bob Woodward's new bombshell book, Fear: Trump in the White House, offers an unprecedented look at drama and chaos inside the West Wing, where top officials express disdain for the president's temperament, character, and intellect, and admit hiding things from the president to protect the nation. CNN obtained a copy of the book, where White House Chief of Staff John Kelly describes Trump as an idiot and unhinged. Defense Secretary James Mattis says Trump has the understanding of a 5th or 6th grader. And Woodward writes that Trump's former personal lawyer, John Dowd, who quit earlier this year, describes the president as an effing liar. He told Trump he would wind up in an orange jumpsuit if he sat down with special counsel Robert Mueller. After a practice session in the residence of the White House back in January, the book says, the president stumbled, contradicted himself, and lost his cool. This goddamn hoax, the president erupted at the beginning of a 30-minute rant. I don't really want to testify.
The Russian witch hunt, we got a whole big combination. Where is the collusion?
After that mock session, Woodward reports, the president's lawyers went to Mueller's office to argue Trump couldn't testify because he's incapable of telling the truth. He just made something up. That's his nature, Dowd reportedly told Mueller. I need the president's testimony, Mueller replied, adding that he was trying to determine whether the president had a corrupt intent in firing FBI Director James Comey. The Russia investigation provides some of the most vivid moments in the book by Woodward, the legendary Washington Post reporter of Watergate fame, that he says is drawn from hundreds of hours of interviews with principals and first-hand observers. The president was not interviewed, despite what Woodward described as repeated attempts to do so. Today, the Post released a recording of a call between Woodward and the president from early last month.
It's really too bad because nobody told me about it, and I would have loved to have spoken to you. You know I'm very open to you. I think you've always been fair, but we'll see what happens.
Then blaming his staff for not approaching him about the book, including top aide Kellyanne Conway.
She has direct access, but she didn't come to me. And you know what? That's okay. I'll just end up with another bad book. What can I tell you?
The book opens with a dramatic scene in the Oval Office, where former chief economic advisor Gary Cohn saw a draft letter he considered dangerous to national security on the president's desk. The letter, about withdrawing the U.S. from a trade agreement with South Korea, left Cohn appalled, so he snatched it, the book says. I wouldn't let him see it, Cohn told an associate. Got to protect the country. The book also offers an even more personal and profane look at the president's anger with his Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who the president described as mentally retarded and a dumb Southerner. The 448-page book shows that the president spares few, including his current lawyer and longtime friend, Rudy Giuliani, who he once reportedly described as a baby. I've never seen a worse defense of me in my life. They took your diaper off right there. You're like a little baby that needed to be changed. When are you going to be a man? The president once told Giuliani, according to the book.
So after several hours of silence here at the White House, Jake, we do now have a blanket statement of denial over all this from the White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders. I will read all that to you in full. She says this: "This book is nothing more than fabricated stories, many by former disgruntled employees told to make the president look bad. While it's not always pretty and rare that the press actually covers it, President Trump has broken through the bureaucratic process to deliver unprecedented successes for the American people. Sometimes it's unconventional, but he always gets results. Democrats and their allies in the media understand the president's policies are working, and with success like this, no one can beat him in 2020, not even close." So, Jake, you'll notice that that response is not exactly responsive to all of the allegations in the book. We should also point out White House Chief of Staff John Kelly issued his own denial. He said he did not call the president an idiot. Jake?
All right, Jeff Zeleny, thanks so much. There's a lot here, and I don't know where to begin, but I guess I think what is the most important part of this is senior cabinet officials and members of the administration suggesting that President Trump is dangerous and not up to the job temperamentally or intellectually. Gary Cohn, the former National Economic Council director, seeing a draft letter that he considered dangerous to national security in the Oval Office desk. It would have withdrawn the U.S. from a critical deal with South Korea. It would, in his views, jeopardize a national security program to detect a North Korean missile launch within 7 seconds. Woodward reports that Cohn told an associate, quote, "I stole it off his desk. I wouldn't let him see it. He's never going to see that document. Got to protect the country." And apparently this is not the only time this has happened. Rob Porter, the former staff secretary, is also described in the book taking things off the president's desk. And this is just a small part of this.
That or the Defense Secretary James Mattis said after a meeting that the president's educational level for certain things was on a 5th or 6th grade level, according to what Bob Woodward says in this book. And you saw that statement from Sarah Sanders saying this was just disgruntled former employees trying to paint an unflattering picture of the president. But I talked to several people over the last few weeks as we were reporting on the unease in the West Wing over the publication of this book. And a lot of the people who did talk to Woodward, which was a lot of people, still work in this White House right now. So it's not these people that are disgruntled ex-employees like maybe a Rob Porter or someone who has left the White House. It's people who still work there that have this. And it's not just these firsthand accounts. Bob Woodward also has memos and email exchanges between White House staffers. So this isn't some sensational author hoping to get the president. This is a veteran reporter who has covered Democratic presidents, Republican presidents, and now he's laying it all out there, what people think of their boss.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who has a track record of decades worth of books. I want to point out, Caitlin Collins, you said something that was very interesting, telling, and amusing, which was in the book,
per usual.
Woodward reports that John Kelly said this of Trump, quote, "He's an idiot. It's pointless to try to convince him of anything. He's gone off the rails. We're in crazy town. I don't even know why any of us are here. This is the worst job I've ever had." And Kelly's...
Other than that, it was favorable.
But Kelly's response to all of that is, "I never said he's an idiot."
Very precise in his denial.
Yeah.
No, look, I think this book obviously carries a fair amount of liability here. The difference in having Bob Woodward report things and having, you know, Wolf and others, as we've seen over the course of the last year.
Michael Wolff, yeah.
Michael Wolff there's a significant stature gap there, right? I mean, I don't think we've all seen Bob Woodward report on the Obama administration, very unflattering tones. With the Bush administration, I remember Bush at War towards the end of the 2006 cycle when I was working at the RNC. That was a devastating book, and this appears to be along those same lines. I think maybe some of the political impact of this, however, maybe because of all of the other books that have come out over the last year and a half. It seems to me that the American people have processed an awful lot of this before Woodward came on.
It's baked in, you think?
I do think a lot of it is baked in. Maybe not for the D.C. elites that hold Woodward's work in a higher esteem than some of the other authors, but I think in terms of how the American people are processing this, I largely think they probably have.
So, Simone, the Washington Post reports in the book, Woodward reports of an incident after Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad launched a chemical attack on civilians. Trump reportedly called Mattis, the defense secretary, and said he wanted to assassinate the dictator, saying, quote, "Let's effing kill him. Let's go in. Let's kill the effing lot of them." Mattis told the president he would get right on it, but after hanging up the phone, he told a senior aide, "We're not going to do any of that." Ignoring presidential orders, and this gets into what Anthony Scaramucci said in July 2017. He said there are people in the administration who think it's